Tonight, on Be Something Wonderful, the most powerful manifesting prayer and affirmation ever. I am your host, Tom Karen, and this is the Be Something Wonderful studio of higher consciousness, where we help you level up and become the best version of yourself. Creators, welcome back. I heard from one of our subscribers that said, Tom, I'm really starting to use affirmations and prayer a lot more in my processes, in my manifesting my desires. And I was just wondering if you could talk a little bit about prayer and affirmations and unpack that a bit more. Well, guys, we're going to unpack this tonight and more. So I want to say that meditation, affirmations, and prayer, they're all used, these processes are all used to rise in consciousness, to that inner state of where your desires are already manifested, right? To align with your inner being or that dimensionally larger you or your higher self. That's what it's used for. In fact, Jesus gave us the master plan, the master prayer that is a metaphysical prayer that connects you with your Christ consciousness, connects you with that divinity within. And it's called the Lord's Prayer. We've all heard about the Lord's Prayer, right? And so we're going to read it in a few minutes, and then we're going to unpack it, the metaphysical meaning. But it's a brilliant metaphysical roadmap to rise in consciousness, to be born again and become one with your higher self. Jesus gave us this roadmap, right? It tells the story of your unlimited creative capacity within to be, do, or have whatever your heart desires, right? One of the biggest reasons we don't manifest our heart's desires is because we forget how to pray, right? We lose sight of that great source, of that great divine supply within, right? We try to will it from a 3D perspective, right? We try to affirm from our 3D thoughts in our 3D world, right? As opposed to connecting and aligning with that dimensionally larger reality, with that dimensionally larger you, with your higher self and that Christ within you, right? The greatest prayer of all time has 7 clauses or verses, right? That's the Lord's Prayer. And remember the significance of number 7. Number 7 appears more than 700 times in the Bible. It means completeness or divine perfection or absolute wholeness. That's what 7 means. So in these 7 verses, in these 7 short and powerful verses that Jesus gave us, he gave us the roadmap to be, do, or have whatever our heart desires, to create our own reality, right? These verses they were put together perfectly by Jesus to speak to you on whatever level of consciousness you're currently at, so you can rise up in consciousness, right? Rise up to your ideal or to be one with your desire. This is very powerful. So, and remember, Jesus cautioned us against using vain or meaningless repetition when praying, right? Using a lot of words that are hollow, right? He says here, do not use meaningless repetition as the Gentiles do, right? Now remember, from the metaphysical perspective, what does this mean? It means the Gentiles represent thoughts of the outer world or the 3D world. So what is he saying? Don't use meaningless repetitions of thoughts in the 3D world or the outer world, right? And he says here, so do not be like them. Do not be like those 3D thoughts, right? For your Father knows what you need before you ask him. Hear this. This is very powerful what he states here in Matthew 6:8. Your Father, that unconditioned consciousness, that God consciousness within, that divinity within, already knows what you need before you ask him. This means you're not praying to get anything. You're not praying to tell God what you want, right? You're praying to thank God. You're praying to receive the gift, right? So prayer is not about asking God for what you want. You're not letting him know. Rather, praying is about receiving your gift. It's about accepting God's grace, right? It's accepting your desire. It's thanking God as the gift and the giver, right? Expressing gratitude with the knowing you are one with the Father. That's what we're talking about here. Wow, and it's very clear there. He states it very clear. Prayer is a powerful affirmation of realizing your every need is already met before you ask. Powerful affirmation. So let's look at the Lord's Prayer and then break it down on a metaphysical aspect, right? The Lord's Prayer. pray. This is what Jesus says, right? After he tells you how to pray, right? Go in the inner room, right? Pray to the Father in secret, and this Father will reward you in secret, right? So pray then, or reward you openly, right? Pray in secret, and then the Lord will reward you openly for praying in secret, right? Pray then in this way. This is what Jesus says. Pray then in this way. And here's the prayer. Our Father who is in heaven, hallowed be your name. First verse, right? Powerful, right? What a powerful opening. Then he says, your kingdom come. Second verse, your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Third verse, right? Give us this day our daily bread. Fourth verse, and forgive us our debts as we also have forgiven our debtors. Fifth verse, right? And do not lead us into temptation. 6, and deliver us from evil. 7. And then this was added on later, right? For yours is the kingdom and the power and the glory forever. Amen. That close was added on later. But 7 powerful verses that have a metaphysical meaning. Everything from establishing your relationship to that unconditional awareness to manifesting it in the 3D world. Wow. So let's unpack this. The Lord's Prayer. We already did that. Let's go a little bit further. The Lord's Prayer starts with our Father. What a powerful opening. Our Father, right? That represents your oneness with God, right? In the unconditional consciousness of Source. Jesus clearly presents the relationship between you and God, Father and Son. And not only between you and God, but you and everybody else in the world. We're all connected. We're all one. Our Father. He uses our. Not your Father or my Father, our Father, right? We're all one. We're all one with that unconditioned awareness or with that divinity, with God, right? Whatever, and here's the big message here. We're made in God's image, right? You are unlimited. You're all powerful. You're all loving. You're all divine. If you're made in God's image, you're endowed with the same creative power. With that one, with those 2 words, God, Jesus is telling us that we're endowed with the same creative power as a Father, that we have the same, we're made of the same divinity, right? Whatever we attribute to God, we must also attribute to ourselves. This is huge, right? Beyond time and space, right? All limitations disappear in this knowing our Father, right? Beyond every limitation and lack. Infinite, eternal, unlimited, perfect. God is divine, therefore, so are you. Wow, what a powerful opening. So let's continue to unpack this. So again, our Father, if you take this to heart, right, it dissolves all fear of separation and limitation. There now is no separation when you take that to heart, right? You are praying as one, not as an individual, right? We're praying as one people, one divine entity, right? Who is in heaven? The next part, that's unconditioned consciousness, right? Heaven. God as cause, as absolute, pure unconditional consciousness. It's talking about that you're in the 3D world, but you're connected with God who is in heaven, who is one with you. It's heaven on earth, right? Earth means is man and manifestation. So you express God as manifestation of your desires. God expresses himself through you. God, perfect cause and infinite cause. So our Father who is in heaven, again, establishing that divinity, right? Establishing that is the world within and that you're going to manifest it in the world without. Wow, this is powerful. And then also, I and my Father are one. My Father is greater than I. It's reinforcing that idea that you're one with the Father, that the Creator and the conception are one. But the Creator is always larger, always bigger than the conception, greater, right? Wow, that's big. So, hallowed be your name. Name always means nature, right? And so hallowed means holy, or perfect, or whole. So the nature of God is holy and perfect, right? Hallowed be my name. You are invoking the holy, perfect, creative power within when you say this. Hallowed be your name, right? God, source, cause is perfect, it's divine, it's whole, right? Therefore, and hear this, if that's true, right? And we were made in God's image, so we're also perfect because God is perfect. If the cause is perfect, the effect must be perfect. That means all your manifestations are also perfect. Hear this, regardless of outside appearances. This is why Jesus says, judge not by outside appearances. This is big. It's only the nature of all manifestations Behind all appearances is good and perfect cause. That includes you and your manifestations, right? It's only our beliefs and our perceptions that creates the difficulties or the unwanted manifestations. Wow, that's big. That's really what creates all the resistance, right? Know that you're perfect cause, and so your manifestations are perfect. God's perfect, and we're God's creation, so we're perfect. Wow, that's big. And so, thy kingdom come, the dawning of Christ consciousness, right? That's the inner presence of God. That's the declaration there. It's the manifestation of God's kingdom through you in 3D reality. Hear this. The manifestation of God's kingdom through you in 3D reality. You as a manifestation of individualized God consciousness, right? We're individuals, but we're not divided. We're united as one in spirit. We're individualized God consciousness, but we're all connected. Right? We're all one. That's powerful. That's a powerful message. This means you can overcome all appearances of limitation, lack, negativity, and separation. Because there is no separation, right? You release all limiting beliefs, letting the old man die and rising in consciousness of that God's infinite presence, right? We let the old man die and we rise to that new man. You rise to that new state of consciousness. That's big. Thy kingdom come. And then your will be done. Your will be done on earth as it is in heaven, right? God's will, which is that higher will, which is that higher good, which is the will of your higher being or your infinite being or your higher self, right? What we try to do is will it from a 3D perspective. That's what creates limitations. That's what creates problems and lack and obstacles. Right? When we don't go with that our higher will, that will of our inner being, that will of our higher God consciousness. Wow, that's big. Allowing your higher self to manifest your greatest good. This is your divine nature. God opens up all doors for you. Right? When you work apart from God's will, that's when you see obstacles, lack, and limitation, and problems, right? And separation. God, give us, so it's about aligning with that higher self, right? Not going it alone. And then it says, give us this day our daily bread. Well, what is bread? Bread always represents spiritual substance in the Bible, right? It's spiritual substance. It's God. It's the blessings. So it's he's not literally talking about bread as in food and clothing, although that will certainly happen. All that will be added on to you. But he's more talking about God's guidance, God's wisdom, God's divine supply, the Spirit of God, right? Rising in consciousness, becoming one with your desires. And then all manifestations in the 3D world flow to you naturally from that higher state of consciousness. All else is added on to you when you align with that substance, that love, that guidance. Wow, that's big. So, and forgive us our debts as we also have forgiven our debtors. This is big. This is a shift now from talking about you manifesting your desires to now talking about forgiveness, right? Not judging your desires, not judging your manifestations, not judging others, not condemning yourself, not condemning others. Forgiveness of sin, meaning forgiving yourself for not aligning with your ideal, but then aligning with it again and forgiving others. It's forgiving separation for thinking that you're separate from God, thinking that you're separate from everybody else, thinking that you're separate from your desires. Judge not, condemn not, forgive others and yourself. That's the forgiveness part right here. Wow. Jesus is covering all bases with this prayer. And then he says, lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. Well, what is that? What's Jesus talking about there? Jesus wouldn't lead us into temptation. So that can only mean that that's the 3D part of us. Right? That's our lower self, that as we rise in consciousness, doubts still come up. Fears may still come up, right, as we start manifesting our desires. This is what Jesus really is talking about here, is persisting in your ideal, persisting in your wish fulfilled, right? Don't be thrown off by doubts. Persist in your imagination, your higher consciousness. Don't be tempted by the doubts and fears of the 3D world, right? Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. Wow, that's powerful. And then, for yours is the kingdom and the power and the glory forever. Amen. That was added later, right? Those were the 7 verses. That's the metaphysical meaning of those verses. God is all in all, divine presence, all that is, all planes of existence, what is and what is not. That's the message. And you're one with all of that, right? This prayer brilliantly outlines your relationship with Source, how to manifest your heart's desire, how to rise in consciousness. It reveals your divine supply and the power of forgiveness and rising above all judgment, doubts, and fears through forgiveness. Wow, that's powerful. It gives you a blueprint for effective and powerful prayer and affirmations. Even if you don't use exactly this prayer, Jesus gave you a blueprint on how to pray, on how to affirm. That's big, right? That is the most powerful manifesting prayer and affirmation ever. I am your host, Tom Caron, and this is the Be Something Wonderful studio of Higher Consciousness, where we help you level up and become the best version of yourself. Don't forget to subscribe, hit the notification button, like and share our videos. That's how we get our message out. Hit us up on Facebook at Be Something Wonderful, on Instagram and Twitter at Tom Caron, our website at tomcaron.com, at besomethingwonderful.com, or write me anytime at info@besomethingwonderful.com. I would love to hear from you. Until next time, this is Tom with great love. See you soon.